Hello, how's it going? Mumblechum straight in there asking me a question. Well, of course you can ask a question, mate. That's the whole fucking point of this thing. What's your question? If your question is why am I such a huge fish, it's because I don't study enough and I drink too much. But if it's anything else, ask away. I did it manually, mate. Thanks, Andy. I've already answered the question. Yeah, as I said, it's just as simple. I just input them manually. So Upswing have got like ranges and what have you for free, and yeah, I saw them and I just thought I just want an easier way of kind of looking at them. So I input them manually, and then and then I used my own brain and thought, well, I know that Upswing ranges they're designed mainly for, you know, what is the ultimate kind of GTO kind of stance. Whereas at the time, I think I was playing 5 and L, and I was like, well, 5 and L isn't necessarily gonna need some of these ranges. Some of these ranges are going to be too wide for 5 and L. So I was just like, yeah, I'm not worried about that for now. I've not actually signed up for Upswing. I was thinking about signing up for the Upswing Lab rather. And I know they've just doubled their prices, which, you know, last week would have been the ideal time, really. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's kind of a double-edged sword, really. You know, I'm not going to necessarily be kind of utilizing it enough to warrant purchasing it. I think is the main reason why I haven't gone for, you know, the Upswing Lab or anything like that just yet. When I eventually get to like playing like 50 NL and 100 NL and stuff like that, then I'll probably invest in some sort of coaching, or, you know, coaching site or training site or whatever, like something to basically allow me to even compete at that level. And if you're playing like 50 NL and you're not willing to spend $50 on something that can help you potentially beat at 50 NL, then it's kind of like, well, you know, why not spend that buy-in on something that can help you win more buy-ins? You know? But right now, playing like 5 NL, 10 NL, and even to a degree 25 NL, I don't think you need it. If you can afford to do it, great. Like, by all means. I don't think you need it as such. There's enough free content out there that most people can get enough out of it, you know. As Andy says there as well, most coach ranges are a bit too wide for micros. Oh, cool. What site are you playing 10 NL on, Mumble? And are you playing reg tables or zoom tables? Because obviously they're very different. Well, they can be very different, depends what you play. At the moment, I'm going between 10 NL on Stars Zoom, which is what you can see here essentially. So my last few sessions, there's this one which looks terrible. It looks a lot worse than it is, and you'll see why later in the sesh. These are all from like the last week or so. One slight losing session there, and then a couple more thinking there. Yeah, it is better to have a structure, but there's a lot of like either free or very, very cheap like ebooks and stuff that give you a good structure as well. Can't think of any off the top of my head. Oslo, but Full Ring on Stars going to switch to 6 max zoom in the future. be prepared for a bit of a shock, is what I say with that. Playing full ring on stars is, well, if you're playing full ring anyway, if you're playing full ring reg tables, is a much different world to playing 6 max zoom. It is completely different. It's nuts. What's Andy said there? Yeah, I've looked at some pokercoaching.com stuff, as Andy has said. In fact, I downloaded the other day. Jonathan Little put a thing up where he was giving away 2 ebooks for free. One was for small stakes cash, one's for small stakes MTTs. I haven't really had a chance to have a look at them yet. I literally downloaded them, I think, like 2 days ago. But I very quickly kind of glossed over what was going to be in them, and it did seem very good. But from what I could tell, at least those ebooks look like they are assuming that you're going to be half decent at identifying different player types. So it was all like what to do in this scenario, cut off first big blind against a loose passive player, or against a tight aggressive player, or against a tight passive, whatever like that. You already kind of have to know a bit in terms of how to how to decipher who is what, or you can really get into that, I think. But as I said, I've only just glossed over it. That was just my first impression. Interesting story. I know, Andy, you said they're all live poker 6-handed at the moment. From what I understand, and I can't remember where I heard this, it was something that I watched. An old school pro, who was a pro before the poker boom in 2003 or whatever, had said that the old full ring was always 8 max. It was never 9 max. Full ring for as long as time had began was always 8 max, or even 7 max. That was considered full ring. But when stars especially first got going, and they were asking pros, how big should we make the tables? Apparently some pro somewhere at some point told them, oh, you should make it 9 max, and they just went, oh, okay, made it 9 max, and that's how then 9 max became the standard. But before then, apparently it was all 8 max, which is weird to think about in this day and age. Surprised me when I read it. Yeah, I did see the free trial as well from pokercoaching.com. I haven't gone into that yet. I haven't really had a look, but I'll have a look at that at some point as well. So, like at some point as well, I'd like to try and get someone who's an actual poker coach on the stream, so they can like review. Because at the moment, thus far, it's just kind of us guys just bantering about and seeing what we can do with our brains. But yeah, it'd be great if you can. Great if I could get someone a bit more professional, let's say, than I am. Anyway, right, let's jump into some hands. So I've got a few hands earmarked here, and there we go. And I've got a mix here. I've got a mix of hands where I've won, hands where I've lost. Okay. And yeah, we're just going to kind of go through and try not to take too much time. We usually take quite a lot of time on certain hands, so I won't promise anything. We'll try and go through pretty swiftly. Also, don't pay attention to any of these stats. These aren't necessarily the stats that I have been playing with in game or anything like that. Reason being is because obviously since these hands have been played, I will have had I could have potentially played an extra 50 or whatever hands against all these players. So these stats are just what I have on the players as of right now, but not necessarily what the players had at the time when I was playing them. And also, I can't get hand to note to work when I'm playing Zoom, so I use Javaro when I'm playing Zoom. So anyway, we'll kick it off. Pocket sevens in the big blind. I think not really a lot to say here. Pretty standard call. No reason to be 3-betting against players under the gun. I do sometimes 3-bet sevens and sixes and fives and what have you if I'm in like the small blind and the button opens. Just because usually button opens are so wide you can get them to fold straight out, and you know, playing a small pocket pair out position is going to be really tough a lot of the time. Especially when the button's going to be so wide and stuff. But against an under the gun range, it's pretty standard to just flat here, not 3-bet, because a lot of the time you're going to be 3-betting into a much stronger range. So boom, that's the perfect flop almost. That deuce was an ace, it'd probably be a bit more of a perfect flop, but as far as flops go for our sevens, pretty good. We flopped the nuts. Obviously we're going to start with a check. Okay, opponent comes in for just over half pot. Now we've got a decision to make here. Do we want to call or do we want to raise? Never folding nuts. I don't actually remember what I did. Donk it. Fucking jamming it. Jam 100 bigs in. Bam. Done. Call me off, bro. Call me off with sixes. I can see arguments for both sides. Personally, I don't remember what I did here, but personally I think flat calling is better in this scenario. Just because we blocked the spades, for one. So we've got a little bit of wiggle room against flush draws. Much less likely for them to have a flush draw, much less likely for them to hit a flush draw if they've got one. Also, because against their under the gun range, they're just going to have total air here a lot. They're going to have ace king, ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, king queen, king jack, king 10, queen jack, queen 10, jack 10, anything with a fucking 10 in it. Queen 9, ace 9, ace 6, like there's all sorts of crap in their range here. So when we flop the nuts here, generally speaking, at least in my opinion, you just kind of want to let them hang themselves in this type of hand. Yeah, 8s, 9s, 10s, jacks, queens, kings, aces, exactly. All of which are just going to keep barreling off against you as well. So you've got no reason to be putting the money in here. If you raise it up, they're pretty much only going to call you with overpairs, which are going to c-bet turn most of the time anyway. And you're just going to fold out a load of junk that could potentially hit something. Like if he's got ace queen of clubs and the queen of diamonds comes on the turn here, he's going broke pretty much with no outs. So that's what we're aiming for here. So I think I call, but I may raise. I do call. Good. I agree with my play here. Boom. There's our money card, 6 of hearts. So obviously we lose to one hand here. We lose to sixes. That's it. Possible for our opponent to potentially have deuces, but not too likely. So we're kind of in a similar situation as we were on the flop, really. He's going to have a bunch of air. He's going to have some flush draws, which now we're not worried about at all. Some straight draws, which we're also not worried about at all because we just hit our boat. And again, yeah, he's going to have overpairs, which are going to be feeling probably a little bit more comfortable because it's very hard for us to have 7-6, pocket sixes, or pocket sevens here. Fold, yeah, 6-6 for sure. You never know, man. You never know. You never know. He comes in again, pretty big c-bet. Again, he's going to be doing this with all his flush draws. He's going to be doing this with XX of spades, XX of hearts that have now picked up a flush draw. All his overpairs, everything in the world is c-betting again here, really, because not a lot has changed. And if he's got a6 or something like that, then then we'll quit him. So I come in for the raise. Why do I raise? I don't really understand why I've raised here. I disagree with my play, if I'm being honest. Well, I tell you what, I can see a reason why I've raised here. I've not raised massively. I've raised quite small, only about kind of 2.5x. If I'm looking at the positives in this play, it's basically to get some money in the pot. Because I'm still getting called by flush draws, most of the time getting called by straight draws. Any six is calling. Most overpairs are probably calling. Yeah, I suppose I don't hate this player, so I guess this is a spot where you could call, you could raise then, in that case. I definitely don't mind the sizing. If I'd raised to like 30 here, then I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? He's just folding so much out. But because I've raised quite small, I actually don't mind it as much. And also, as I said, we're just looking to inflate the pot with this raise, I guess. Yeah, it's an interesting one. But anyway, we get a call. So yeah, as Andy says, if you want to get stacks in, you have to raise here. Yeah, it is a tough one, I think. But even then, like, it's still really hard. Like, the pot's only 54 now, and we've got, you know, about 80 bigs behind. We're going to struggle. You know, if we jam on the river, any river, doesn't matter what the river is, but if we jam on the river, we're going to get called by so little. So few hands are going to call to a jam on the river. So it does make sense for inflating the pot for value now, so that we can bet somewhat bigger on the river and get called by some stuff, but not necessarily get the stack in unless, of course, he raises on the river. So river's an 8. It's not the best card in the world, because what we want really is for one of the flushes to get there. Ideally spades, I guess. The 8 again doesn't really change a lot. You could have pocket 8s here, but it's not too likely. You could have a hand like 8-6 of diamonds, but that's reaching pretty thin. You could have 10-9 of spades, 10-9 of hearts. Both of those would make a fair bit of sense. And then all of the other overpairs, and then a bunch of missed draws and stuff like that. So I bet 37, which I think is about right. We want to get called by pocket 9s, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, all of which I think are going to call this size. On the turn, it does look a little bit like we might have picked up some sort of flush draw. Bet 35 and cross your fingers. Yeah, well, I've gone for 37, so it's close enough. Getting that extra 2 bigs of value. So yeah, so it's I think this bet size on the river is good. I think I probably played this hand a bit better than I originally thought, actually. As Mumble said, like, you could raise on the flop. Me personally, I don't think the flop is a raise. If you've got deuces on the flop, then absolutely, by all means, go ahead and raise. I think it's just very hard for our opponent to have anything on the flop that can call a raise a lot of the time. I think you're just folding too much stuff out. When he c-bets the turn, where a lot of the time he might just give up on the turn. Why deuces? Because you're not blocking hands like 7-6, which would potentially raise from under the gun. But aside from that, I'm talking in terms of value hands. In terms of value hands, obviously all the overpairs are there regardless, but you also kind of want him to potentially have a hand like 8-7, 9-7, 6-7, ace-7, and then the same with the sixes as well, 6-5, 7-5 as well. All of those hands, it's very, very difficult for them to have when you have the 7 yourself. And as I said, you want to try and raise it up when it's hard for your opponent, well, when it's easy, sorry, for your opponent to call you if you've got value. They're weak, but they are going to call. Most of the time, if someone gets raised on a flop here, they've got a7 or 8-7 or 9-7 or even 10-7 or 7-6, 7-5. Any 7, I think, here on the flop, if you raise it up on the flop, I think they're going to call pretty much every time. So in my opinion, it does make a big difference. But a hand like 6-5 or a6 or something like that, if you raise on the flop, probably just going to fold it straight out. They may call. They're probably just going to fold. I think you get more hands folding on the flop when you raise than calling. And as I said before, you want all of their, ace king through jack 10, for example, all of their Broadway combos that have absolute jack shit on the flop. You want to keep those in. You don't want them folding straight out when you flop top set or low board. That's my main reason for calling the flop, is because I don't want ace king or queen jack or whatever to fold. I want them to try and pick something up on the turn or river that I can then get value from. I don't want them folding straight out, because then I'm not getting enough money from my set. I'm not getting enough value from my set at all. Yeah, I'm not saying that there aren't more overpair combos in his range. What I'm saying is, even if you increase his range by 3% to include some 7x, that 3% still matters. And again, just to reiterate, the main reason that I'm not raising on the flop is because I want to keep all his junk in. I'm just saying that 2s is a slightly better hand. I'm not saying it's a million times better and you should always raise with deuces on this exact flop. I'm saying it is slightly better because it is more likely that your opponent has a hand like a7 or 7-6 than it is, and will call a raise with that, than it is for them to have a hand like 6 deuce or ace deuce and call a raise with that. That's the point I'm getting at here. But I think most sets on this particular board against an under the gun raising range, I think pretty much all sets on this board really should probably just flat. But then raise up. If you've got 8-9 of spades on this flop or whatever, then raise it up, of course. But yeah, anyway, getting back on point. Main reason for calling on the flop is so we keep all his junk air hands in and he keeps barreling. Same reason for if you decide to call on the turn, but if you decide to raise it up, raise it small so that you do keep some weaker hands in, potentially some flush draws, stuff like that. If you raise too much, then even some flush draws are just going to fold it out. And then on the river, as played, I think this size is fine. So anyway, we need to see what the villain's going to do anyway. Villain jams. So, what does the villain have that he jams with here? What can the villain possibly have here? Well, I think they can have any 6 and we'll jam here. If they've got a6, if they've got 7-6 or 8-6, 6-5, I think all of those hands are going to jam on the river, because the flushes don't get there. The 8 does make it possible for 10-9 for a straight to be in there, but it's not all that likely for me to have 10-9 with the way that I've played the hand. So I think you're going to get all 6x. Sometimes on a very rare occasion, I say very rare, on a fairly rare occasion, you're going to see like aces and kings stack off here just because they think, oh, my opponent missed the flush and, you know, fuck them. Sometimes they may have 10-9 themselves. Could reasonably have like 10-9 of spades or 10-9 of hearts, I think. They could have pocket 8s, which would suck. Obviously, they can have pocket deuces and pocket 6s as well. Yeah, 4-5 suited as well, potentially. If they've got 4-5 of spades, 4-5 of hearts. Just, it's not as likely that they raise under the gun with 4-5 as it is for them to have like 10-9. Is my only thought there. Anyway, I won't beat about the bush with this hand too much. Obviously, we're calling. It's never a question of whether we're calling or not, because, you know, we've got the, what, third nuts here? We're only beaten by 8s and 6s, right? So we're not really worried about calling, are we? Except for the fact that he's got 6s. So that was a hand. Remember I said at the start in with this graph, it looks worse than it does. That was one of the hands that makes it look worse than it does. So yeah, I thought that was, yeah, mumble. As soon as you said it, I thought I don't want to give him the satisfaction just yet. I'm gonna make him wait. But yeah, so he had 6s, and this is one of those hands that's just like you just gotta shrug your shoulders and get on with it. Like, as I said, he's gonna have any 6x is gonna shove. Any 6x is shoving. As well as a bunch of other junk. We're only worried about pocket 8s and pocket 6s, which is just so unlikely, it's unreal. In fact, he's got 1 combo of 6s, and he's got, what, 3 combos of pocket 8s. It's just not even a thing. So that hand sucked. Cooler. Move on. But I thought the actual play leading up to that river spot was quite interesting. Okay, next hand. Yeah, it's one of those hands where if you don't lose your stack in that hand, you're doing something wrong, as weird as that sounds. Like, you should be losing your stack when you've got a boat like that. Okay, so ace king, obviously we're raising it up 3x. Just interesting to note my raising strategy. Generally speaking, from these two positions, I'll raise 2.5x. From these two positions, I'll raise 3x. With almost any combination of what I'm playing. The only exception would be if I'm raising from these two positions with a particularly weak hand. If I've got something like really fucking shitty. If I've got like pocket 4s or 4-5 suited or something like that. Something that I'm not going to be too thrilled to call a 3-bet with. And therefore more likely to fold to a 3-bet, then I'll raise it slightly smaller and try and just be cheeky, basically. Have that backwards from standard practice. What, raising smaller from early position and larger from later position? That is standard practice, Andy. I hate to break it to you. I think you're getting mixed up there, Andy. With not to be too, I hope you don't find that offensive, but I think you're getting mixed up between when you're playing in the blinds out of position. When you're playing in the blinds out of position, and you are 3-betting, then you 3-bet more because you're out of position. When you are in early position, in terms of you're raising first in from early position, then generally speaking you raise slightly smaller, because when you get 3-bet from later positions by, you know, say you're in under the gun and you raise it up and you distracted. Whatever floats your boat, man. Say you raise it up from under the gun. Your raise has to not be 3-bet by this player, and this player, right? And then this player and this player. You've got to get through so many players who could all be very easily holding a better hand than you. Obviously, Ace King is not necessarily akin to this rule, because most of the time Ace King is going to be the best hand. But then you don't want to be only raising 3x when you have aces, kings, and ace king from early position, because then it makes you super easy to read, right? So you want to kind of generally pick your position, and for the most part, just raise the same from that position. But we're also going to be raising from this position, from under the gun, with ace 10 suited, for example. Now, if you're raising from here with ace 10 suited, you've got to get through 5 players. Now, most of the time, because you've got 3 players here, if someone 3-bets you, you're going to be out of position against that 3-bet. Therefore, it makes whatever price you're getting worse, basically. And also, when someone calls you, you're going to be playing out of position. So you don't want to start investing loads of money in the pot when it's more likely, because there are more players behind you, when it's more likely that you are going to be playing out of position post flop, which is going to be harder for you than in position. The reason why we raise more from later position is because it is more likely that you're then going to be playing against, say from the cutoff, I've got to get through 1 person who would have position on me, and then 2 people who I've got position against. So I'm quite happy to play a larger pot because I'm going to be in position against these guys when they call. Or if they 3-bet, I'm able to call a wider range because I'll have position on them post flop. Therefore, I don't mind putting a bit more money in the pot pre-flop. Does that make sense? I've heard a few people. I played a live tournament the week before lockdown in the UK in March, and I heard someone saying the exact same thing about, oh no, you should always raise bigger in early position and smaller in later position. And myself and everyone else, well, pretty much everyone else at the table, all basically explained to him what I've just explained, and he didn't get it. Needless to say, he didn't make the money. I don't think he did anyway. So yeah, does that make a bit more sense? Because at the end of the day, if you're under the gun here and you raise 2.5x, or you raise 3.5x, let's say, and someone by here or here has whatever they've got, Jack 10, something like that, they're probably going to call no matter what raise size you choose here. You're not making more people fold by raising 3x or 3.5x as opposed to raising 2.5x or 2x. You're not getting more folds from the players who have position on you. They're calling you with whatever they're deciding to call you with. They're going to be calling pretty inelastically unless you raise something stupid like fucking 5x under the gun. Then you'll get more folds, but then you're just clicking buttons and you're just playing a silly game. However, what you do accomplish by raising slightly smaller from an early position is you save yourself money when you get 3-bet and you have to fold, or when you completely brick the flop and have to just give up in the hand. You've not invested too much money. Anyway, that's that explanation out of the way. Pretty much, Mumble. Pretty much. It's different in full ring, I should express. I'm just talking purely 6-max. I mainly play 6-max, so I'm just talking 6-max here. For full ring, I only really play full ring if it's in an MTT, in which case that has a whole other dimension of different betting sizes based on position, where you are in the tournament, based on stack sizes, what your stack size is, what everyone else's stack sizes are. I won't get into that basically, but yeah. So by and large, I'm probably raising 2.5x from these two positions, 3x from these two positions. There will be allowances sometimes. If I've got aces or kings in under the gun, then I'm just gonna raise 3x, because as I said earlier, if I'm raising 3x or 2.5x from this position, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference to if someone's going to call on the button. But by raising 3x with aces or kings or whatever, I want to get more money in the pot with those hands, so I'll raise bigger. From the small blind, I raise all kinds of funky sizes. Sometimes I'll min raise, sometimes I'll raise 3x, sometimes 2.5x, sometimes 3.5x. Like I just mix it up all over the shop from the small blind, because similar kind of thing. Like if the person in the big blind is going to fold, they're probably going to fold to 2.5x or 3x. So I don't really kind of worry too much, but yeah, 2.5x or 3x I think is fine from small blind. As you move up in stakes, I've noticed, because I have played a little bit at like 20 NL and stuff like that. I've noticed 2.5x becomes more standard from like all positions. I didn't see hardly anyone opening from 3x, so it might be something to do with this the stakes you play as well. Anyway, let's get on with the hand. If I recall, I think this hand is quite a short one. So big blind calls, we flop the absolute world, only being beaten by King 7, pocket 7s, right? So opponent checks to us. I decide to just throw the cheekiest bet in the world out, just one big blind. This is probably one hand in like 10,000 where I'll do something funky like this in terms of betting, like min betting. But I thought I want to, as weird as it sounds, to against this random opponent. In this moment, something just clicked in my head. I thought, what's the fishiest thing I could do? What's the thing I could do right now that is just going to make me look like the worst player in the world? And I thought, min bet. I thought min bet is the worst thing, is the thing that I could do here that makes me look fucking awful. Except maybe like jamming on the flop, but obviously he's just going to fold most of the time. So, opponent calls, and I'm thinking, okay, great, he's got something. He's got a flush draw, he's got 7, maybe even he's got a worse king. Opponent then donks the turn. Give me some hands, guys. Like what are we thinking the opponent is doing here? Or what hands is he doing this with, more to the point? Because when this happened in game, I was just like, what? Like what is this? What does this mean? We check called a min bet on the flop and then donks pot on the turn. Any ideas, guys? Sorry, as I'm burping into the microphone. Oh, someone give me a hand. Someone give me a hand. They reckon someone's going to do this with. Okay, straight draw, 2 pair air. It's fair. Flush draw as well, would you say, maybe? Well, I would say flush draw as well. So if they're doing this with a straight draw, they're probably doing it with a flush draw, right? The straight draws are a lot harder to come by. They've got like 6-5. Maybe 8-6 might do this, but even then, those two hands are probably folding on the flop unless they're 8-6 or 6-5 of hearts. So mainly flushes, some 7x, and then just random trash that he's thinking, okay, this donkey here is just min betting with rubbish. I'm just going to call and then make him fold on turn. But I thought, nah, I thought, no, I'm not having that. My primary thought here was that my opponent had some sort of flush draw. And so I thought for a second, yeah, eights, nines, possibly eights and nines. Yeah, but my main thought was probably a flush draw. That was the only hand that I was worried about, at least. So I thought, well, if he's got a flush draw, I want to charge him. I don't want to just give him a free card to potentially hit his flush on the river. I thought I want to at least get some, either get some value, but also kind of a little bit of protection as well. My opponent jams. No worries, Andy. You go and be a house husband, and we'll catch you later. Andy taking one for the team is going to making his missus tea. Meanwhile, my missus is downstairs slaving away over the stove, making me what's it bloody called? Salt and pepper chicken and noodles. There's a restaurant that we used to live nearby called Chopsticks, which was it just did the most amazing chicken and noodles, and we learned how to make it from home. So she's currently making that. So yeah, what's he doing this with, guys? 6-5 of hearts. Okay, right. Let's rattle off hands that we lose against, hands that we beat. Hands that we lose against: King 7, King 4, pocket 7s, pocket 4s. Okay, that was quick. Hands that we beat: King Queen, King Jack, King 10, King 9, King 8, King 6, King 5, King 3, King Deuce. All of those can be in there, by the way, some of which offsuit, and then when you get to like King 6, King 5s, they'd be like King 6 suited, King 5 suited, of which there's only like one combo of each of those, but they still count. Could be doing this with 6-5 of hearts. You could be doing this with a weird hand like Ace 4 of hearts, something like that, I reckon, if he thinks that I'm full of shit. And yeah, I thought, well, at this stage I'm thinking, okay, well, he's got some sort of draw, he's got some sort of king. That's pretty much it. Either way, I'm pretty happy to call. And see the pocket 7s. I promise, Mumble, it's not all going to be a cooler stream, but yeah. Once again, from this session where the green line keeps going down, you can't really do a lot about that, can you? You can't, like. Well, how far was I? At one point, I was down 5 buy-ins. I was down about $50 in 500 hands. I clawed it back to like being down 3.5 buy-ins. But again, yeah, it's like you can't do anything there. That hand, I'm also for anyone who missed it earlier, this hand quads against top boat, or almost top boat. Can't really do anything. So now we're gonna move on. But I thought those two hands were quite entertaining, and also a little bit interesting. A little interesting to see especially how the opponents were playing their hands. Well, both of them with quads and a boat, respectively, chose to kind of, as soon as they saw the aggression from me, they chose to just shut down. Well, maybe not shut down immediately, but they didn't immediately go for the kill. They just let me hang myself a little bit more, and then they went for the kill. Pocket Kings. Okay. Going back to what Andy was talking about, it sucks that Andy's gone now, but this is what we were talking about earlier in terms of raise sizes. So we've got the chap here in early position raising 2.5x, pretty standard. It is worth mentioning, by the way, that playing at PokerStars Zoom tables at the moment, you are hit with this ante, this 0.1 big blind ante, which fucking sucks. Like, it's just money grabbing from PokerStars once again. It's just increasing the pot, increasing the rake, and fuck them. But what I thought when I first started playing Zoom tables with this ante in was, oh, you're gonna have to start raising more now because the pot is going to be bigger and people are going to be folding. Maybe at higher stakes that'll happen, not at 10 and L. 10 and L, people do not give a fuck about this. They do not even know it's there, is what I've noticed. People will fold to a min raise, you know, from the small blind. When you've got to call one big blind more, and people will just, it doesn't matter what they've got, they'll just fold. Obviously not all the time, but yeah. So what I will say, if you're thinking like about playing 10 and L Zoom, or I think 25 and L, I think 50 and L Zoom have this ante as well. At 25 and 50 it might be different, but at 10 and L people do not pay attention to this at all, this ante in the middle. So you can still get away with not having to raise more, you know, to force more folds or whatever. But as I was explaining to Andy earlier, obviously because we are going to be out of position in the pot, we want to inflate the pot a bit more, just to narrow our opponent's range down. If we come in for 7.5x here, they're gonna 7.5 big blinds, 3x. They're going to be calling all sorts of junk, so we want to, you know, narrow their range a little bit. Obviously, we don't want them to be folding everything when we've got pocket kings, but we want to get some junk out of their range, just so it makes it a bit easier to read them. And they come in for the call. So Jack 9 deuce suited, as in 9 deuce suited. Okay, so some important points here, straight off. Hands that we get called by when we 3-bet, there's going to be a ton of Jack X in there. There's going to be some 9x. There's going to be a ton of diamonds. Good thing we don't block diamonds, so it means you can have a lot more flush draws that we can get value from. Queen 10 as well, which not only can he have and we can get value from, but we also block one of his outs with the Queen 10, or well, two of their outs rather. So for all those reasons, my mind goes to what I should do. Again, I can't remember everything that I've done in these hands here, so I may end up playing it in a different way to the way that I say I think I should. But I think I should be betting pretty big here on this flop, because there are so many draws, so many pairs that our opponent can have. I want to go straight for value right now. I don't want to give them, I don't want to bet, you know, what's 1/3, 7 bigs or something like that here, and let them get a cheap draw to a flush or to a straight or whatever. So I think I should bet big, and I do bet big, bet about 80% here, about 75-80%, exactly as Mumble said. So yeah, I'm perfectly happy with this bet size. I think this bet size is perfect for what it needs to be. There is an argument for just going, excuse me, for going full pot or even over bet, I think, on this flop. Yeah, I think if I saw someone do a pot size bet or do an over bet, I wouldn't think they were getting too out of line. I think that would be a pretty good bet size, but 75-80 I think is probably a fairly standard bet size to go for here. Our opponent jams straight away on us. So again, what we got to think about here is what range is our opponent calling with. So they're going to be calling with pocket 9s, sometimes pocket deuces, and certainly pocket jacks as well. Those are the only hands that we're losing against at the moment. Hands that we beat that they could be betting here. Got to remember, our big bet here, it looks fairly bluffy. Like most people in 3-bet pots don't come out betting big when the flop comes down. Most of them just come out betting, you know, with a small C bet or whatever, try and keep people in the hand, try and get value and stuff. I'd expect our opponent to do this with ace king, ace queen, ace jack, all of diamonds. I think they'd be doing this with any ace jack, to be honest. I think they'll do this with some king jacks as well. Certainly king jack of diamonds, queen jack of diamonds will do this. Jack 10 of diamonds probably do this as well. I'm giving the opponent a little bit wider range maybe than they have, but I'm just emphasizing like you will see people do this with all of these hands. And against a player where we don't know anything about them, you have to kind of include all of that in their range. If you know them to be like a strong regular or something like that, then you can narrow them down to like, you know, a king jack, ace jack of diamonds and sets and not much else or whatever. Queen 10 of diamonds would do this. 10 8 of diamonds would do this, which they may call with. I think even king queen of diamonds would do this potentially. Yeah, I mean this is one of the things, like the fact that we don't have the king of diamonds mean that all of these king x of diamonds draws that they have are going to be very prevalent in their range. And it makes us kind of lean a little bit more towards a call, I think. Anyone got any reason to fold here? I know Mumble, you said there will not 4-bet jacks. In my experience, people generally don't. I very rarely see people 4-bet jacks, to be honest. Very rarely. Queens, kings, aces, ace, king is pretty much all I ever see people 4-bet in the micros. And Zoom tables anyway, that is. Zoom tables and fast forward on Party Poker. Grim reckons it's 9s or jacks. See if Grim's right. Deuce on the turn changes nothing. But we hit the king on the river, boys. And our opponent did have pocket 9s. So, almost a cooler hand. I know Mumble was saying earlier, is this just going to be a cooler stream? But yeah, like, obviously our opponent, I think, has made the right choice here. I think our opponent has made the right call pre. I think they've made the right shove on the flop. I don't think they've done anything wrong at all. But I don't think we have either. I think we've done everything right in this hand, despite the fact that we call behind and, you know, get that bit of luck on the river. This again was during this horrendous session that I played the other day. But yeah, I think it's very, yeah. I think it was it's kind of an interesting spot on the flop there, where our opponent's value range is so short, but their value range can be. Sorry, their value range can be so short, but their kind of semi-bluffing range can be so heavy. It is an oh-no moment, yeah. Yeah, they can have queens as well. I did forget to mention that. They can have queens sometimes. People are very passive with queens and jacks. I'm guilty of that as well, like I won't lie. I've been trying to mix in 4-bets more with the queens, especially. Not so much the jacks. Jacks, I tend to try and play them the same as 10s, just because jacks are a nightmare to play, as everyone knows. But yeah, I thought that was a fairly interesting hand. And now we've got the ace-9 offsuit. Who likes ace-9 offsuit? I don't. I don't think anyone else does either. Very quickly glossing over pre-flop. It's, you know, standard to raise. In the small blind, we get called. There's not really anything to say. Maybe make it 3x if you want to, but you know, doesn't make that much of a difference really. So we see a 9-8-4 flop. If I remember rightly, I think this is a hand I played earlier today, thinking about it. I wouldn't be so sure about Mumble. Just yeah, in case anyone can't read the chat. Mum was saying about you're more likely to 4-bet jacks against small blind because they're going to 3-bet their whole range. What you've got to remember is when someone's 3-betting out of position, as in they're 3-betting from either of the blinds and they know they're going to be out of position post flop, their range, their 3-betting range should be really, really fucking strong. Let me just get Equilab up here a sec while we've got the question on. Let me take that down. Okay, so let's go with small blind range. Let's go with, let me find upswing / me. 3-bet versus open from hijack, let's see. So 3-bet versus open from the hijack. We have suited aces, suited ace king off, obviously aces through 10s, and then 7-6 and 6-5 suited as bluffs. I would say even nowadays, like, I probably don't even do the bluffs that much. At 5 and L, I was all the time. 10 and L, I'm not doing it as much. But yeah, let's take that range, right? And let's go mid position. Let's see what range. So jacks is basically flipping against this range here. And this range has got a couple of bluffs in it as well. It's got some 7-6, 6-5 in that. If I change this range slightly to be more what I would probably 3-bet now, probably throw those in, throw that in. I'd say that's probably about right in terms of what I 3-bet now most of the time. Still about 50%. Now let's take your average opponent, who is going to be, generally speaking, 3-betting even tighter than that. Let's just take those hands out that I added in. And then jacks is slightly behind. So the point I'm getting at here is that jacks is never going to be a million miles ahead of this range. But let's take this exact same range, just as an exercise here. Let's try queens. Queens already is doing so much better than jacks against the exact same range that has, you know, ace jack, ace queen, king queen, ace king, 10s plus, and queens has about 10% more equity than jacks does already. 10s, I'm going to guess, is going to be doing terribly. Yeah. But 10s isn't as bad as jacks. Well, how can I explain this? So the difference between 10s and jacks is about, what, 7%. The difference between jacks and queens is about 9 or 10%. Yeah, so about 7% 10s to jacks. And then, yeah, jacks to queens 9%. So you can see how as you move up in the range, it just, the equity is just that little bit more. So fucking, this is a terrible explanation. I do apologize. But I hope some of this is sinking in. Obviously, when you get to fucking kings, then you're just absolutely smashing this range, the 3-bets. The only problem you do have, though, is what hands are generally going to call a 4-bet. Then you're kind of down to that. But then even then, kings is doing great. Queens suddenly starts to struggle. Again, we're looking at hands that are going to call the 4-bet here. It's all very well and good you 4-betting, but you've got to think what hands are going to call you. And this is pretty standard calling range for a 4-bet, especially out of position as well. The queens is pretty much flipping, which is about right. How many times have you had queens against ace king all in pre? I know I lost one of those today. Jacks all of a sudden is getting crushed. Jacks is getting absolutely crushed by this calling range. Like, even if you take queens and jacks out, it's still doing pretty badly. So, to my mind, when I look at this, I go, okay, well, if I 4-bet jacks, then I'm getting all the hands that jacks dominates or is doing well against the fold. But when I 4-bet jacks, sorry, when I call jacks, I keep those hands in. And obviously these hands are going to be there regardless. They're going to be there whether you 4-bet, you know, all of this shit. They're going to be there whether you 4-bet or whether you call a 3-bet. Point is, most of the time, you're going to be up against, you're not obviously going to be up against jacks very often because there's only going to be one other combo of jacks. So most of the time, you're going to be losing against aces, kings, and queens, or flipping against ace, king. Or you'd even be flipping against ace, queen if someone's a little bit looser. And most of these hands are going to 5-bet jam, and are you really happy to call a 5-bet jam with jacks for 100 bigs? I'm not. Not against this range. So, yeah. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's my take on 4-betting pocket jacks. With real equities to back up my claims, flimsy though they may be. So, where did we get to? We raised on the small blind, got a call. Fairly draw heavy flop. Now the important thing to note here is the big blind's going to have a ton of crap in their range, and they're going to have a ton of draws from this. They can have 10-7 of fucking clubs. They can have 6-7 of hearts, whatever. You know, they're going to have a ton of shit. They can even have something like ace deuce of spades and all that. So we need to put a bet out. Looking at this again, I don't like my bet size. I've gone for a standard 1/3 pot, and I think the reason why I've done that is most of the time if I raise in the small blind and get called, I am going to c-bet almost 100% flops. And almost 100% of those flops that I c-bet, I'm going to c-bet 1/3 pot. So the reason why I've done this is from memory, if you will, or from muscle memory more to the point. It is purely to kind of keep myself balanced. I know what people are going to say. You don't need to worry about GTO at the micros, and I agree with that statement. You don't need to worry too much about GTO at the micros, but you still can't be playing your hands face up at the same time. You gotta leave a little bit of mystery in there if you're coming across the same player. And in a massive Zoom pool like Stars has, getting 64 hands against an opponent is quite a lot. You know, and almost all of these players, you know, they ebb and flow like the tide. You see them once in a blue moon kind of thing. So yeah, I think you have to bet this flop. You probably should go for a bigger sizing because there's a lot of draws that you want to get value from. 8x, worst 9x, even 4x, 6s, 7s, shit like that. Flush draws, straight draws, all that good stuff. But 1/3 pot is, you know, it's not terrible, I don't think. I think I could have done a lot worse here. Opponent comes in for a raise. Now, my first thought, as soon as this raise comes in, is flush draw. Generally speaking, if someone raises on the flop, majority of the time, I would say, it's either a set or a flush draw, or top two. Now, we block top two, so I'm not worried about that. Eights, I would expect most of the time, well, eights and nines, I would expect most of the time to 3-bet, especially when they've got position against me. So I'm thinking here, right, he's probably got either pocket fours, flush draw, maybe a straight draw like a jack 10, maybe a 7-6 or something like that. Okay, so I think there's a good argument for calling or raising here. I think raising is good because you're denying equity to all those draws. And I think calling is good because whilst, yes, you do offer a free card to your opponent, you do give them the opportunity to continue bluffing on the turn, and you can get more value from their missed draws, stuff like that. So I don't remember what I did. Yeah, I did go for the raise here. Again, to get value from their flush draws and their straight draws and all that. And this is also kind of to see where I'm at. If they jam here, I'm folding. Because with the exception of maybe if they've got like ace 10 of spades, where they've got 2 overs and the flush draw, something like, or jack 10 of spades, I don't think they're going to jam. I think they're only really going to be jamming pocket fours. And also, if they've got jack 10 of spades here, I'm pretty sure we're actually behind in terms of equity. In fact, we'll just double check that using Equilab now. Which it's a weird thing. Like even though you're ahead, you're kind of behind. Well, we've got ace, diamonds, 9 of hearts. Flop is, don't tell me. Diamonds, was it? I don't remember what hand it was. Yeah, it was 9 diamonds. Look at me. Me and my big brain. So let's go with exactly jack 10 of spades, just as an example here. We're absolutely dominated by jack 10 of spades. Even though jack 10 of spades hasn't even got a pair at this point, we're actually dominated. So this is part of my thinking of... Oh, thanks for the follow, Cool Hand Matt. I didn't get a notification of that. I don't know why. Something's broken. What is broken? Oh, is my bloody thing disconnected? It fucking has as well. I've got a give me a sec. I've missed a bunch of follows. Sorry guys. My I appreciate all your follows. Usually it gives me a pop-up to tell me, but my bloody thing is disconnected. Fucking amateur hour or what? Now I've got to remember my Twitch password, which is easier said than done. I think I know what it is. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. And then if I put this code in, authorize, necked. There we go. Boom. Yeah, look, it's catching up now. But thanks for the follow, Grim. Thanks for the follow, Sloth. Thanks for the follow. Cool Hand. Right, let's go back to the analysis. So yeah, as we can see here, Jack 10 suited is dominating us, despite the fact it doesn't even have pair, and that's because it's just got so many outs against us. So even if someone shoves against our 3-bet on this flop, with Jack 10 suited, which we're technically ahead of in terms of pure what we've got right now, we should actually really be folding because we are huge underdog. Queen 10, Again, Queen 10 spades, we're still behind. Pretty sure we'll be behind King 10 and Ace 10. King 10, we're just slightly behind, not as behind. And Ace 10, I think we'll be slightly ahead of. Yeah, slightly ahead of. But even then, you know, we're coin flipping against all these hands. You know, if you go for King Queen of Spades, again, just ever so slightly behind. Queen Jack of Spades will be a little bit more behind again, I think. Yeah. So it's interesting when you look at the equities of the hands that you're actually beating, and you're still not a favorite to win the hand overall if you were to get all in right now. So yeah, no worries. No worries. Was that Wang? Wang? Something like that. So we'll start the hand again from pre-flop, but I hope those equity kind of made sense for people. So we raised in the small blind, got a call from the villain. We've come in for a small C bet here. I was explaining to the guys earlier that I think a bigger bet size would be slightly better, just to get more value from draws and things like that. But I think 1/3 is fine if you're literally betting every single. If you see bet in every flop when you've raised in the blinds, 1/3 as standard, I think it's fine to continue kind of doing that as a standard. We get raised from the villain, and I decide to come in for the 3-bet. And as I was kind of explaining, I'm coming in for 3-bet because I want to get value. I want to get value right now from their draws. I want to get value from potentially worse 9x if they've got King 9, Queen 9, Jack 9, 10 9. Straights as well, Jack 10 of any suit, whatever like that. I understand what you're saying there, Wang. We've kind of been over raise sizes a lot pre-flop during the stream, so I won't go into that completely again. But the long and short is, if they're calling 2.5x, they're calling 3x. If they're calling 3x, they're calling 2.5x. It's not going to make a blind bit of difference in the blinds, in my personal experience. Yeah. That's fair, Wang. That's fair. That's fair. We've just gone through the equities, and I know you say if they jam versus our 3-bet, we have to call. My question to you is why? Why do we have to call a jam here? Because what are we beating if they jam? We've only put 23.5 big blinds into the pot. We're 76 behind. Why do we have to call a jam? Simple answer is we don't. We don't have to call a jam here. If someone jams and you are extremely likely to be behind or at best flipping, then you know it's not worth it in my book. It's not worth it. Save your 75 bigs in a close spot, or a spot where you're likely slightly behind most of the time, for a time when you're more ahead. But I'm going for my 3-bet here, as I said, to get value from the draws that come in for a raise a lot of the time on this flop. Yes, I am aware. I'm aware. But multi-point, villain doesn't jam. They just decide to call. We could spend forever on just talking about a flop, but I want to move the hands along. I hope you don't mind. So turn comes a 7, which is a pretty bad card for our range. Well, it's not a terrible card for our range as such. It's a terrible card because Jack 10 gets there. But except for Jack 10, not a lot else does really. There are a lot of other hands that kind of hit this turn. 8. I can't even see 8-7 calling a 3-bet on the flop. Maybe 9-7. Some sort of spade with a 7, 5-6 of spades. Aside from that, I don't see many hands hitting this turn. And for that reason, I hate this bet that I make. I sized down my turn bet. And I really don't like it at all. Because if our opponent's got, as I was saying earlier, like ace 10, king 10, queen 10, for example, of spades or whatever, I still want to be getting value from those hands. I want to be getting protection against those hands. Jack 10 is just a kind of, it sucks if he's got Jack 10 at this stage. But when the flush doesn't get there, I think I should be betting big again on the turn. At least, you know, 2/3 pot or something like that. Because yeah, like I still need to get protection against those flush draws. I need to get protection against any straight draws that are remaining, and 9 and queen 10 and all that. And I need to be getting protection against the flush draws. So I really don't like my bet size here at all. I think it's fucking stupid, to be honest. Only positives I can find in it is that if our opponent now decides to jam, it makes our decision to potentially fold a lot easier, because the stacked pot ratio isn't completely against us. But even then, I think when the flush misses the turn, we should be pretty happy to go with it no matter what. Especially when he doesn't come back over the top of us on the flop, which he's going to do almost all the time with a set. So our opponent just calls here, which I found to be odd. I thought as soon as I put this bet in, I thought I've royally fucked this hand up and that I'm now going to be screwed. And he's going to jam and I'm just going to be in a horrible spot. But he just decides to call, which I found very odd. And the turn comes another 7. Again, flush draw misses. I thought, well, if he had Jack 10, he's going to jam turn. There's no reason for him not to. If he had a set, he would have jammed flop or certainly would have jammed turn. No reason for him not to. Again, I don't see any reason for him not to do these things. Or even if he had a hand like 9-7 or 8-7, I think he would have jammed on the turn. So at this stage, I'm thinking, I think he's got a missed flush draw, and that's pretty much it. I couldn't see my way past him just having a missed flush draw. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get value from a missed flush draw. There's no point in me betting for a missed flush draw to just fold. But the other alternative is to potentially check call if he decides to bluff. And if he just checks back, then, you know, he checks back. And if he jams and he just slow played a straight or slow played a set or a boat or whatever, then I've just got to take that on the chin at this stage, because I kind of balls at the turn a little bit. I do check. My opponent does jam, and I'll spare you the fence. Called, and he did have the missed flush at king 6 of spades, which, looking back, it kind of makes sense. Easy calculate on the flop. What's Wang saying here? That's not necessarily how that gets calculated, Wang. Because when you the way that the pot odds are calculated, and I understand why you're saying what you're saying, because I would have said the exact same thing until a couple of months ago, when I did some studying, read some articles, all that shit, about how pot odds are actually calculated, and it's not you call 79 to win 114. the way you calculate it is you add whatever you are going to call to the pot. So it's whatever the pot is plus what the villain has put in plus whatever you're going to put in divided by whatever you're going to put in. So just as a calculator, fortunately you've done some of the calcs for me already. So it's 114 in the pot. Actually, there was more than that in the pot already. Wasn't there? There's 5.3 in the pot. So 114 plus 5.3. So there's 119 in the pot. Plus the 79 that I'd have to call. Now I think it's divided by 79. No, 79 divided by 198. Have a good one, Grim. Cheers for hanging out, bud. So, oh yeah, you've got it right. Sorry, man. It was the way you described it in the chat was I thought you were just dividing the 79 by 114. I misread the way you'd worded it in the chat. But even 40%, like, yeah, that's fine. We got straightened out. But even then, again, if you want to, look, I'm not a coach or anything like that. Let me just get this out there, guys, in case anyone's new. I'm not a coach. I don't play professionally or anything like that. I'm just a dude with a stream that wants to have a discussion about how to get better. And this is why it's good that we have these differences of opinion, because I've got kind of my opinion, Wang's got his opinion, and those of you guys who are just, you know, watching or whatever can kind of look at both of our takes and decide for yourselves which one you think is better, or better yet, go and study the spot for yourself. Go, hang on a sec, well, these two guys can't agree on which is the best universal way to play it. Wang thinks it's this way, Big Shades think it's this way. So I'm going to go off and study the spot myself and see what I should be doing. So yeah, like, just want to get that clear. I'm a very opinionated person. That is one of my best and worst qualities. So I'm sorry if sometimes I come across like I'm just shooting people down when they give their own opinions, but I'm very opinionated myself as well. So giving you guys full transparency here as to why I'm such a cunt. Yeah, I'm agreeing that I'm not arguing against the math of the hand. If you've got, you know, if you have to have 40% equity to call and you've got 45%, then, you know, as far as the math is concerned, you should call, assuming, but, you know, we're looking against a wide range of hands. And you can never know for certain what your opponent's holding at the end of the day. So yes, you're not wrong there, Mumble. So you can never be certain of what your opponent's holding. The problem with poker is it's a game of incomplete information at the end of the day. Like, whilst I can look at an Equilab or whatever like that, and I can go, okay, well, if he has ace 10 of spades here, then I have X amount of equity, therefore I should call. That's great. That's fantastic in practice. But I can never be certain what this guy is going to shove. So I have to go on what limited information that I have to make some sort of decision, right? I need to narrow their range down. I need to you know, take all their actions into consideration, and then also take into consideration the actions, because I don't know this person. Like I have no idea who this person is. I don't know what ranges they're playing. I don't know what they jam on the flop, what they call on the flop, fold, check, raise, whatever. I don't know what they do because I don't know this person. As NRS Big T has just said, people don't tend to bluff as much, and this is where we get into population exploits. As NRS has said there, 10NL Zoom is full of fucking awful players. You do get some decent regs and what have you like that, but generally speaking, 10NL Zoom is full of absolute garbage players who haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing. They don't know that they have 54% against my 46% or whatever like that, and so they tend to underbluff. Like, it's just the fact of the microstakes. It's not unknown. People don't bluff enough at the microstakes. They more likely go for value hands, and yeah, that's it basically. They more than likely go for value hands. So if my opponent here was to jam on this flop, yes, they could be jamming ace jack of spades, ace seven of spades, or whatever like that. They could be jamming jack 10 of spades, but they are most likely, at least in my personal experience, your experience may well be different, but in my experience, they are most likely just going to be jamming for value. They're just going to be jamming for value with a 9-8, a pocket eights, a pocket fours, a fucking 8-4 suited or some shit like that if they've got it, and hands like that. So based on that, that's where I then kind of detract a bit from the math. I go, okay, well, yeah, the math might say that I can call with if I've got 40%, and I might be able to call if I even if I know that they've got, you know, queen 10 of spades and I'm a slight underdog, I can still call because of XYZ. Because of the population and the tendency of the population, when they see a bet and then a 3-bet on the flop, they know I'm not fucking around. They know I've got something strong for value. And in my personal experience, most people do exactly what this guy has done on the flop here. When they've got their draw, they go, oh, I don't really want to get it in just with a draw. I'm just going to call my draw. And then on the turn, when I fuck up, and I bet way smaller than I should be betting bigger here, in my opinion. Again, all my opinion. I think I should be betting bigger here to get value from those draws, get protection against those draws, and what have you. This guy should probably be jamming his draw now. His draw's massively increased as well. He's got king 6 here. So you can hit a 10, a 5, or a spade, or a king for that matter. He doesn't necessarily know that. To beat me and beat most people who are going to be playing the way that I did on the flop. So you could probably jam here quite comfortably. But again, people at the micros, they just don't like getting it in with a draw without a made hand. They just don't like getting it in. So he just decides to call again. And then on the river, when he's gone all that way and he missed his draw the whole way, and he realizes, fuck, I've got king high, I can't win the hand by checking back. He goes for the bluff, and then I sack him. So that's my take on that, basically. Again, I'm a passionate guy, and I talk a lot of shit. I'm opinionated. That's what you get here. You might not get the right answer, but you'll get an opinionated and a passionate answer. That's all I can offer you. Again, not trying to be a dick here. But sometimes, like, you can, and I am guilty of this a lot as well. I know a lot of people at the micros are guilty of this. where they take PO sims and they match them blow for blow, or they try to match them blow for blow on the tables, and they think, if I don't play exactly perfect GTO when I'm playing 10NL Zoom, then I'm playing badly at 10NL Zoom. Not necessarily the case, because a big part of poker is the human element. You're playing against people, real people with real thoughts and feelings, unless you're playing against a bot. Less we talk about bots, the better. But you're playing against real people with real thoughts and real feelings and real emotions. And the most effective way to win, in my opinion, at these stakes anyway, maybe if you're playing against fucking Linus Love or someone like that, fucking good luck to you trying to exploit him. Good luck to you, because he ain't no fool. But if you are playing against Brew T124 at 10NL Zoom on a fucking Wednesday morning, they're not playing perfect poker. GTO sims are great, but they are an assumption of a perfect simulation playing against a perfect simulation. Humans are imperfect. Ruti124, sorry bro, but you're imperfect. They will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. Everyone will make mistakes. But it's about trying to figure out a way against the specific people, if you can, but if not, against the population you're playing in, a way to exploit those mistakes that people are going to make in order to either save you money in the long run or make you more money in the long run. Yeah, as Mumble said, most are just going to call their draws and shove for value. Unfortunately, this is the unfortunate world we live in. Most are just going to call their draws and shove for value. I'll give you a perfect example of this, right? I won't mention who they are because who knows, maybe they watch this stream one day. But I play on 10NL fast forward on party quite a lot. I'm not doing brilliantly there. I'm breaking even a little bit, but I have had some really fucking shitty variants in the last week or two, so I'm taking that into large consideration as well. I think I'm probably a slightly winning player there. But there is one player in particular who is a reg. They're on every single day. Now, just because they're a reg doesn't mean they are an amazing player. Now, they are a decent player. I've seen them make some good moves, and they've got a decent stack and all that. However, against this one particular player, I 3-bet way wider against them than anyone else. Now, bear in mind, party poker, you don't have HUD, you don't have stats, none of that shit. You've just got to go on pure watching people and figuring them out. And that's it. That's all you got to go on. Which is even harder in a Zoom type pool. And I've been making an absolute fucking killing, just relentlessly 3-betting this one player, because obviously we're in a fast forward pool. They probably don't realize that I am targeting them specifically. I'm 3-betting hands that a GTO sim will say you shouldn't be 3-betting that from the small blind, or you shouldn't be 3-betting that from the big blind, against a button open or cutoff open or whatever. But against this one particular player, I know that I can exploit them by raising 3-betting a lot wider, because they are calling way too little against 3-bets, and they're 4-betting even less than that. They are folding way too much to 3-bets, and I've noticed that, kind of isolated that and gone, right, here is where I throw out what I should theoretically in GTO be 3-betting against them. I should be deviating from that to exploit this one player. And then you get to the whole thing of, well, how do you exploit the population? And that comes from just time and experience of playing at a particular stake. And you know, it's well kind of known that most players at the Microstakes under bluff aren't aggressive enough with their draws, or even their strong hands for that matter. When you see massive aggression coming from someone, it's usually because they've got it. Case in point, like this hand earlier. Boom, guy jams straight in. We talked earlier and we said, well, you can have queen 10 of diamonds, you can have this, that, and the other. He's got pocket nines. He's got the set. Boom, he just sticks it in. No fucking about, just gets it in. Here, perfect example again. Alright, he slow plays flop, bam. Just going straight for value, pots it on the turn. We raise, boom, fuck it, get it in. What's he got? He's got a boat. And this is what you're competing against at the micros. You're competing primarily against players who just want to get it in with value, and that's it. Where you exploit them is by them tending to overvalue their hands, or making mistakes like this guy. Like, he made a mistake by not jamming on the flop, probably. Definitely made a mistake by not jamming on the turn and putting me in a really tough spot. And then in the end, he's just gone, fuck it, I'm just going to bluff. I've missed everything, I'm just going to have to bluff now. And yeah, as Mumble says, like, people tend to save their bluffs for the river, which is bizarre because, you know, generally speaking, you want to bluff with some sort of equity to improve your hand in case your bluff doesn't work. On the river, if you're bluffing, you've got no equity to improve at all. Like, if you lose the hand, like, if you're behind and your opponent calls, that's it, you're fucked. You haven't got 1%. So yeah. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening to me rant there for as long as I did. I realised that was quite a rant, but what can you do? Anyway, I've kind of run over a bit here. I wasn't planning on streaming for this long, but I felt like we got into a bit of a heated discussion, which is always good, and I feel like it was worthwhile. I am now going to end the stream, but I may well be back later on. In fact, I'm probably going to be back on later on in the evening in a couple of hours to play some Among Us, which, as everyone knows, is everyone's favourite fucking game at the minute. But yeah, the group that I play with in someone's Discord channel, server, whatever, we have some properly good fun and good laughs on it. It's not like I've seen some of these Among Us streams where people are just sat silent, stoic, like not saying anything. No, like we rib each other, we give each other shit, and it is a proper good time. So anyway, that'll do now for the Microstakes poker study group. I will put this up on YouTube in a few days' time, probably. I've not been on it with doing that so well recently, but I have put up only yesterday or the day before, I put up the last session on YouTube, so go to my YouTube channel where you can watch that over, and I'll put this one up in a few days' time. So thanks for coming out, guys, and hopefully see you later on. Cheers.